Gold, gold, gold. That's what has happened today. It's something for all Australians to celebrate, and I know that really lifts spirits of Australians right across the country, and particularly back in Sydney, where they continue to go through the lockdown and where they've had some very difficult news today, and I'll come to that obviously very, very shortly. But again, to Ariane Titmus, she is the absolute queen of the pool. All Australians are proud, no doubt, but Tasmanians most significantly, in her adopted state of Queensland. Tasmania itself is now running up the gold medal charts at the Olympics, and I'm sure they're celebrating that along with all Australians. Also to Kaylee McEwen yesterday, I haven't had the opportunity to remark on her tremendous performance, and I can only imagine just how proud her father would have been, and of course the sister and her mother, and to see everyone up there with Dawnie, it was just such a wonderful sight. And particularly out there on the water, our wonderful rowers, an awesome performance, as everyone else has said. But our Olympians are doing us tremendously proud. But particularly at this time, I know when so much of the country, and especially in Sydney, they are going through a very difficult time, to be able to see their exploits, I know will bring them some measure of cheer. Now, that news today, of course, was very difficult in Sydney. To be going in to another month, effectively, of this lockdown. And it was information that I suspect most Sydney-siders expected. My own family, of course, is there, and I'm talking constantly to people back in Sydney, and it is tough going. But what I want to assure you of, absolutely assure you of, as you've already heard from the Premier and the Treasurer of New South Wales, that the Commonwealth Government has your back, just as we've had the back of Australians all through this crisis, ensuring way back to last year, whether it was the economic supports we provided through JobKeeper and JobSeeker, COVID supplement, the cash flow boost, the support packages to the arts and entertainment industry and to the aviation sector. This continues to flow, and the priority is to ensure we're there to support those who need that help, because this is the task. We will come through the lockdown. The lockdown will be released, as it has been, thankfully, in South Australia and in Victoria. And on the other side, we come back strongly. That's what we saw last year, when 1 million people got back into jobs, when we saw our economy grow back to a level higher than it was, even before the pandemic. And the way we are structuring these supports to people, whether it's the individual payments or the business support payments, are to ensure that those businesses and those individuals can get through as whole as possible through these lockdowns, so on the other side, our economy can roar back on the other side. So that is what it's designed to do, and our measures of support are never set and forget. All states and territories, together with the Commonwealth, are working closely as we're adjusting how we're dealing with this Delta strain, how we're adjusting on the ground when it comes to the way lockdowns are being put in, quick and effective, as we've seen, and those states come out of it, but also to learn the lessons and ensure that we're giving every support we can to the ongoing situation in New South Wales. Now, I can confirm what the Premier and the Treasurer in New South Wales have already said. Over the course of the last several days, indeed up to a week, the federal government has been working on a program of additional support that may have been required should Sydney have gone into a further lockdown. That meant last night we were able to bring to the table the enhanced measures that we were able to agree last night, and I thank the Premier in New South Wales and the Treasurer for the cooperative way we've worked together. Once again, we did it several weeks ago when we announced the initial package, and we've worked together again to provide this increased support, which would see business cash flow initiative extending out to businesses of 250 million turnover, maximum payments of 100,000, up to 40% of turnover, and a minimum payment of $1,500 to those smaller businesses. I also don't want people to forget that there's a $1,000 a week payment to sole traders as well. So those individual sole traders who are out there, may not be incorporated, the support was there in the initial package for you as well. This support dates back to the 18th of July. That means that 460,000 companies and 3 million employees of those companies will be supported through this direct support. It's necessary. The lockdown is going into a further month, and that means we need to continue to press forward in providing that support. Now, I note that also Victoria, we came to an agreement, the Premier and I, together with our Treasurers, and Treasurers will say a bit more about that later this afternoon. Victoria has gone into a further round of their business supports, and we're meeting those costs 50-50 with them, just like we have in New South Wales. And I thank both the Premier of Victoria and their Treasurer for working so closely with Josh and I in coming to that arrangement. And should South Australia need something similar, I've spoken to the Premier, Treasurer Frydenberg has spoken to Rob Lucas, and those discussions are ongoing should they need that support. The supports, though, aren't limited to business. We will be further increasing the levels of support provided to individuals through the COVID disaster payment right across the state of New South Wales. We'll be increasing from next week the maximum payment of $600 to $750, and we'll be increasing the payment for less than 20 hours from $375 to $450. In addition to that, we will be extending support to those who are on welfare payments, and they will be able to receive a payment if they've lost more than 8 hours of $200. Now remember, they are already getting payments through the social welfare system. So in the case of someone who's on a full job seeker rate, they're getting just over around about $315 a week. So that $200 comes on top of that and does not in any way undermine the support payments they're getting through. It obviously goes in addition to the youth allowance payments, the pension payments. The whole point of this is that people aren't able to earn that extra income they were earning. And these payments are there to support them, to ensure that there is some recognition of that, that they have been prevented from doing that, and this will provide them some additional support. I might run you through also where we are currently on those levels of support both to New South Wales and Victoria. In New South Wales so far, 812,372 grants of disaster payment assistance have been provided. That represents 463,558 individuals who have received direct support from the federal government to ensure they're getting through this crisis. The total amount out the door and in the bank accounts of those who need it in New South Wales is already $411.7 million. The great advantage of the direct COVID disaster payment system is it's fast, and it means that we can calibrate the support as I've announced here today. So if you're in New South Wales at the moment and you're one of those 463,000 people, this Thursday, the regular payment you got of $600 will clock through again and you'll receive that, or $375 if you're on that payment. If you're on the Sunday payment, Monday payment, you will get that $375 again. Next week, you will get a $750 or $450 payment. And next week, if you're on welfare benefits and you're seeking to get access to this, you can apply for that by going online on Tuesday, okay? So those welfare benefits, those support payments start from next week. You can go online and you can apply for those on Tuesday at Services Australia. Now, for those beneficiaries, they will be in an advantaged position from the perspective that they're already dealing with Services Australia. They already have their customer recognition numbers and those things, and so that online process should be very straightforward for you. In Victoria, I can also confirm that 143,855 claims have been made in Victoria. That's 140,998 individuals and $78 million, $78.899 million have been provided very promptly at the end of that lockdown already in Victoria. If you're in Victoria, you will still receive your second payment at the end of this week. So if you got that payment already, you will get a second payment in Victoria, and I think that enables people to have the confidence in how this system is working. And if we are faced with other short, sharp lockdowns in the future, then these are the arrangements that will be in place going forward. Can I also just note a couple of things in relation to New South Wales? We have to push through this lockdown in Sydney. There is no other shortcut. There's no other way through. We have to just hunker down and push through. What we're asking people to do in Sydney is to abide by the restrictions that have been put in place by the New South Wales government, to stay home, to get tested, to get vaccinated, and the additional opportunities to ensure that you can get the AstraZeneca vaccine with the walk-in clinics. We're already seeing a great response to that. So everybody in Sydney, that's the only way we're going to get through this. Stay at home, get tested, get vaccinated, continue to support one another. All of the mental health support lines are open to you. We've already got over a $17 million package that we've put in place to upgrade and put more funding into those services so they're available to you. And we will keep working with all the states and territories to ensure that we come through this. And as we've already seen once before, as we did with our economy after we came back from last year, we will come back just as strongly this next time because of the significant support that is being put in place. Happy to take questions.
Are you disappointed in how slow New South Wales has been to deliver this funding to businesses? It was announced weeks ago and there's been very little support. And also the AFP Commissioner, just another point, says drugs are as deadly as tourism. How...
Sorry, I couldn't hear the second one.
The second question is the AFP Commissioner said today that drugs in Australia are as deadly as tourism. How much of a dent has Operation Ironside put into the drug trade in Australia?
A big dent. And they're doing a great job, the AFP, and they're dealing with all the threats that Australia faces. And I thank all the members of the AFP and their partner police forces all around the country who do a tremendous job on behalf of us all. And they're always got their eye on every threat, current, emerging, and dealing with it. They are one of the best resourced federal police agencies around the world, and they're getting great support from our government. On the other matter, we've got to focus forward. You know, we've just got to focus forward in terms of getting through this lockdown. Much has been learnt about the Delta strain in recent times, and governments all around the world are adjusting how they're responding to make sure they can get it right. Of course, I think we've learnt over these last 6 to 8 weeks that when we are faced with this Delta strain, of course, as we've seen in Victoria and South Australia, that is the model we're going to have to follow. And that's why we're adjusting the supports to be there to ensure that does that. But, you know, all governments, can I assure everyone, because there'll be lots of commentary, I'm sure there'll be lots of criticisms, there'll be lots of hindsight. This Delta strain is very unpredictable. And can I assure you that all governments, federal, state, everywhere, and I particularly want to thank those hospital workers at the moment in New South Wales where the system's under strain and they're doing a great job, as the Health Minister in New South Wales said today, keeping pace with the demand that's there. We have one of the best health systems in the world. But they're all doing their best. They're all doing their best to keep Australians safe. We've been saving lives and livelihoods, and we're going to keep doing that by sticking together and focus on the problems that are in front of us. Mark.
$750 a week, Prime Minister. This is now the same level as the original JobKeeper. So why not reintroduce JobKeeper?
Because it's not the right solution for the problems we have now. What we're doing now is faster, it's more effective, it's more targeted, it's getting help where it's needed far more quickly. We're not dealing with a pandemic outbreak across the whole country. When we did JobKeeper, we had to employ it across the whole country, all at once, and we did it for 6 months. What we need now is the focused effort on where the need is right now. And so it can be turned on and off to the extent that we have outbreaks that occur. JobKeeper did not have that flexibility. It did not have that agility. Those payments that I mentioned, $411 million in New South Wales alone, businesses under that scheme would have had to have gone to their bank, borrowed that $411 million to make it available to their employees. In this case, we just acted and got the payments to them, in some cases, in half an hour of application. Now, that never happened. JobKeeper was a great scheme, but you don't play last year's grand final this year. You deal with this year's challenges. You deal with this moment's problems. And what we've designed together with the business cash flow support when you put that together, that is providing the assistance we need now. Now, I would note, and this is very interesting, because what we're not seeing, and I don't expect we will see, because of the way the COVID disaster payment is moving so swiftly, we have not seen an uptick in people going on to JobSeeker, because they understand they're getting that support from the government, they're staying with their employers. That means in a month, hopefully, when business returns, they'll go back into work with those employers, they'll get on with their jobs, and our economy will roar back to life. So this is the right answer for this problem.
Can I just clarify? So the increased payments, will that now be the existing model going forward for any further lockdowns? And secondly, do you have a sense of how much this is now going to cost with the changes?
Well, to give you an idea, we believe now, with all of these measures in place in New South Wales, that the Commonwealth support from the federal government to people in New South Wales will be running at around about $750 million a week. Now, that was basically what we were doing last year in Victoria, when Victoria was in the same lockdown. So it's a commensurate level of support. $750 million a week, and I want to acknowledge that's just the Commonwealth government. The state government is also putting in significant supports beyond that as well. So there is a great deal of economic support going in at the moment, and what that is doing is keeping the New South Wales economy as whole as possible, because your policy challenge here, your economic challenge in what frankly is our biggest economy in the country. If New South Wales had befallen this last year, together with what happened last year, then I do not believe we would have seen the economic recovery that we saw last year. So New South Wales did tremendously well last year, but now they've confronted this year. And so it's important that we keep the New South Wales economy, just like others, but particularly New South Wales because of its size. We need to keep that in a fit shape so it will recover strongly on the other side. And that's what we've seen from our measures. Australia has had, the IMF has acknowledged it today, one of, if not the most effective economic interventions during this pandemic of almost anywhere in the world. And we're applying those same lessons to the challenge now in New South Wales. But we're just not cutting and pasting before and thinking that will solve the problem. We're actually designing and upgrading our plans to ensure they meet the needs right in front of us. Sarah.
Prime Minister, a lot of people are looking for hope and reassurance from their political leaders at the moment. If people do all the right things through this lockdown, stay home, get tested, get vaccinated, what do you hope life looks like in Australia come Christmas? Can you give people the reassurance that if they do the right thing, they'll be able to see their families, they'll be able to travel interstate?
Good question. As I said, our vaccination rates are now running, we're even doing better than 1 million a week. And the upgraded advice from ATAGI, the revised advice from ATAGI, means that we're going to get much more effectiveness out of the AstraZeneca vaccine doses that we have available. And I commend the New South Wales governments on opening those walk-in clinics. I would encourage other state and territory governments to be looking at similar initiatives. The AstraZeneca vaccine is a safe vaccine. It's an effective vaccine. It saved lives all around the world. It's the most recognised vaccine in the world by all countries, particularly when they're looking at people travelling. It is more recognised even than Pfizer. And so this vaccine is really important. And I'd encourage people to take their initiative, use their informed consent, get informed through their GP, go and get it at the clinic, at the pharmacist, at any of these places, and ensure we continue to build these vaccination rates. The Pfizer doses are, of course, increasing, but the AstraZeneca is there, and that gets us to our goal a lot faster. Now, with what we're seeing, bar any unforeseen events, then I believe by the end of the year we will be in that position where everyone who's had the opportunity for a vaccine will have had it, and to ensure that Australians have joined that task in achieving the highest vaccination rates possible. Well, I would expect by Christmas we will be seeing a very different Australia to what we're seeing now. What we're seeing overseas is when countries do reach those much higher vaccination rates, then that does give their governments a lot more options in the suppression limitations they have to use to deal with the virus. Lockdowns become a thing of the past when you're at that level, and I've noted we'll be considering those issues from the Doherty report modelling. It's being brought together now with the Treasury modelling. That process is happening right now. I don't want to say that will be resolved on Friday. That'll be our first discussion. I suspect many more will be required after that, and I hope we'll be able to set those targets and give more definition to phase 2 and phase 3 in that time. But we have a plan for that. We are setting the targets scientifically, combined with the economic advice as well, and that gets us a roadmap to Christmas, I think, that means that we'll be living life different at Christmas than what we are now. Phil?
About the fourth time you've had to tweak the income and business assistance since the start of last month, and yet you've raised the threshold for business assistance now down to can't talk in this bloody thing, sorry, up to 250 million. Do you envisage that'll be the end of the matter, or, I mean, I know you never say never, or may you have to go further for larger companies if New South Wales keeps going?
Well, we never set and forget. I think that's been important. And you'll remember last year, JobKeeper wasn't our first announcement to deal with the pandemic. From memory, it was our third, because we kept upgrading it. And we responded to the evolving nature of the pandemic as we understood at that time. Our first response, from memory, was around $17 billion. And I'll tell you what, that sounded like a lot at the time. By the time we got to JobKeeper, well, it was minnowed. And what that tells you, Phil, is that there's no guidebook to COVID. Even when you think you understand it, the Delta variant comes along and it changes all the rules and you've got to adjust. And I think one of the things Australia has done, and I know National Cabinet's had its critics and its baggers, but I tell you what, the fact we meet every week and we work over this, and then we make the changes, and then we adapt, and we listen to each other, and then we fine-tune our programs, that has been enormously valuable. And we've got to retain that adaptability and that flexibility, and we've got to meet the problem in front of us, because I can tell you, the problem in front of you keeps changing quite quickly. That's not unique to Australia. It's the same everywhere in the world. Now, you make the point about larger businesses. The advantage of larger businesses is they're operating right across the country. Their operations aren't confined to New South Wales. So this measure really does focus on those businesses that are predominantly impacted by their operations in New South Wales. So if they've had a 30% fall in their turnover, well, they would have a heavy set towards New South Wales. Now, we'll keep looking at those issues, and there are some specific sectoral issues there which I think are relevant, that have particularly acute impacts from these things, but more broadly, at this point, it's not our advice that would be needed.
Prime Minister, on the government... Why are younger Australians not listening to you when they're being told that they can get the AstraZeneca vaccine if they want to? And there is particular hesitancy in migrant and vulnerable minority communities like Indigenous communities. What is your government doing to combat this, and has Australia got on top of this front?
Well, first of all, they are listening and they are getting vaccinated, and they're doing it in the tens of thousands. And the convenience of the clinics that you've seen the New South Wales government set up with walk-ins, I think, is a very good initiative. And I think the change in the ATAGI advice will greatly assist it. As you recall, I've been pushing this for a long time. I was talking about it back in June, was criticised quite strongly at the time for even floating the idea. But I'm pleased to see that the advice has mirrored that view, and that we're now seeing more and more young people taking that opportunity. And I would encourage them, with informed consent and talking to their doctors, making their choices. But we are seeing them do that. It has saved the lives of young people all around the world, particularly in the United Kingdom. So I would commend them to give that serious consideration, as ATAGI has said. In terms of cultural communication, well, this has been our task right from the outset of the pandemic, and the work that the Department of Home Affairs is doing with direct in-community consultations, in-language communications, the work the New South Wales government, and I've got to say the Victorian government, has been doing, phone trees into communities, working with religious leaders, a lot of direct communication. That has been a high priority. It's also been a challenge, but at the same time it's been, I think, a broad, across the government effort to ensure we're getting these messages in the languages and in the forums and the situations where people can receive that information. and it's been a big effort from both state and Commonwealth governments. But you're right to highlight it as a priority. It certainly is.
Minister, can I ask about government payments?
Been very patient.
Yeah, thank you very much, Prime Minister, as ever. Just to seek some clarification on Pablo's question.
Yep.
When it comes to those government payments, you say that this is the rule from here on. Is that from week 1, or do you have to get to the 5th week? And secondly, Dominic Perrottet, and pardon my French, says he's been a right pain in the arse. Is he right to claim responsibility for the announcements today?
It's a partnership. Who cares who takes responsibility for the credit for this? Ronald Reagan had a great saying. You know, if you care about, you get a lot more done if you don't care who takes the credit. So whoever wants to take the credit for this payment, knock yourself out. Okay, I'm just happy we're getting payments to people. That's what I'm focused on. Who cares who gets the credit? I don't. I really don't. On the other serious point, though, that you raise, it is from eligibility is from day one. So, for example, in the South Australia experience that we've just gone through, eligibility was from day one, but they made the claim at the conclusion of that week. So they get paid in arrears for that week. And the payment level will be at that level, eligibility from week 1.
So the extra payment that goes to youth allowance, to people on job seeker, it now starts from week 1 as
Correct.
opposed to week 5.
Correct. And the reason for that, and we changed eligibility to week 1 when Victorian lockdown occurred, and that was followed quickly by the South Australian situation, because it was very clear that this is now the pattern. Now, we will, I hope not, but it is clear that the best response in these circumstances with the Delta variant is that approach. I think that's fairly obvious. That's not a criticism. I make no criticism of decisions that others have made. I seriously don't. Everybody makes decisions on the best information they have and in good faith with the best intentions for their citizens. But I think there's a clear learning here, and that is the approach that I would expect states would follow in the future.
Prime Minister, the JobKeeper and 2020 Job Seeker were plagued with complaints from businesses that it was a disincentive to work. Is part of the reasoning of this new system is that there's less of that disincentive to work because you can essentially turn it off and on when lockdowns are turned off?
Well, it's a very good point, and it's targeted. That's the other point. I mean, one of the problems we had with JobKeeper after some time is that Australia opened up again, and we had people who were getting income support payments who then were taken out of the labour market. Now, in other parts of the country, the labour market is, employment market is functioning, and people, if they're unable to get hours there, have got the opportunity to seek hours in another place. So what we're doing here, because it's so targeted to the area that's affected, we're not interfering with what's happening elsewhere. Remember, it wasn't that long ago when holding a press conference on employment issues in Australia, we were talking about massive labour needs and the labour pressures and workforce shortages in so many areas. Now, of course, when you put restrictions in, like we have in New South Wales and in Sydney, there isn't another place that someone can go and get that hours. In fact, we don't want them to go and get those hours. We want them to stay at home. We want the lockdown to work. And the sooner the lockdown works, the sooner we get out of lockdown.
So just on the roadmap and having hope for how we get out of this, when you mentioned you have the Doherty Institute modelling, when will we actually see some specifics around that 4-phase plan and how we progress through it? Are we talking weeks, days?
Well, I hope it's weeks. I hope it's sooner than that, but that all depends on the process we're working through with the premiers and the chief ministers. I mean, like in any normal cabinet process, I mean, I've spent the whole week in cabinet meetings. I've just come out of one this morning. You have papers, they go through a normal cabinet process, you evaluate it, you discuss it, you make decisions. We don't release cabinet submissions in advance, you all know that. It's important that premiers and chief ministers and I have the opportunity to discuss that information and in a secure way, and to come to conclusions and to make decisions and to set those targets in the best interests of the country. So that's the process we're engaged in. We're keen to do it as promptly as we can, and then to release various information that we can at that time to inform people about what the plan is and how we've been able to set those targets. And so I hope that, we're talking a couple of weeks, I hope. If it takes longer than that, well, it will take longer than that. What matters is getting it right. And we are one of few countries, to the best of my knowledge, that has gone through this scientific process, looking at the experience of other countries, and said, well, what rates do you really need to have to ensure that if you do go into the next phase, where you don't lock down, and you do use other measures to control the virus, that you have a higher likelihood of being successful. Because if you get that wrong, well, you end up with very long lockdowns, and nobody wants that. So it is important to get the right scientific advice on this, to get the right economic advice, because you've got to weigh those two things up. Restrictions cost the economy, it's true, but an outbreak getting out of control also costs the economy. So those are the difficult issues we have to weigh up and get right.
Just on that economic... Just in regards to Queensland, there's been another leak out of hotel quarantine. What's holding up progress on the feasibility study into the Damascus Binkenbar hotel quarantine, and can you see that being approved to be built and operational before the end of the year?
I hope so, but that's really a partnership arrangement. There's no hold-ups on the feasibility study that I'm aware of. That's going ahead.
It was meant to be Simon Birmingham said it was on July 5 that it was going to take a few weeks to get through that feasibility study.
We're still in July.
Still in July.
So we're still in a few weeks. No, I haven't been advised of any hold-up on the Pinkenbar option. Or on the Western Australian option, looking at Jandakot and the airport. Those programs are underway. We moved very swiftly on the Melbourne option. Premier Andrews and I are very keen to see that come online this year. I expect to see it come online in stages, so 500 rooms first, probably more later. I would hope that we could get going on Queensland soon. There are a number of issues that are being raised in that process by the Queensland government, totally legitimate issues. We've just got to work through those, and hopefully we can proceed as soon as possible.
Just on that economic advice,
just
on that economic advice that you were just referring to, do today's support measures now go into that Treasury modelling, and will that impact what the vaccination rate needs to be to avoid these lockdowns? Does more support for businesses and individuals mean the vaccination rate needs to be higher as well?
No, it doesn't really work like that. The economic supports we're putting at the moment are actually just to ensure you can keep your economy as whole as possible so it can emerge strongly on the other side. The economic advice, what it effectively does is say that, look, if you go through a protracted lockdown, then that costs the economy, but it also costs governments with these types of payments. So that's already assumed in to the advice that they're giving. You have lockdowns, you have significant economic support payments that you necessarily have to provide. So that's why getting this balance right between the economics and the health is really important. Countries that have moved too soon have found themselves shutting back up again within days. And we don't want to get in that situation. What we want to do is make sure we hit these targets, set these targets right, and then all of Australia, like our Olympians, we go for gold on getting those vaccination rates where we need to go, because the supply's there, the distribution's there, the pharmacists, the GPs, the clinics, and we make a gold medal run all the way to the end of this year. And the sooner we get there, the sooner we get there.
There was a report yesterday, so I think I get two because I've been standing without an umbrella.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
There was a report yesterday that your office intervened after some frustration being expressed with the health department's signing of deals with the pharmaceutical companies. Is that report correct?
I don't know what you're referring to.
There was a report yesterday that between March and August last year, your office and an advisor from your office, Alex Cullery, became involved in the Department of Health's attempts to get deals signed with the pharmaceutical companies because of frustration that those deals hadn't been signed earlier.
No, that just sounds like a lot of chatter in Canberra to me. We work with the Department of Health, with the Department of Treasury, with the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet, every state and territory government. We work with industry, we work with the GPs, the AMA, the pharmacists, all of them. We're all working together. People work together, talk to each other every single day. I'm not really Don't know really where that came from, but sounds like someone just having a bit of a natter over a coffee to me.
Like our Olympians, will Australia beat COVID?
Sorry?
Will Australia beat COVID like our Olympians?
Australia will beat COVID. I mean, COVID will always, be lurking. I mean, it doesn't completely get eliminated. The flu's not eliminated. There's many infectious diseases that are not eliminated. But with the vaccination program, the way we've been able to keep our economy together, even when it's going through what Sydney is going through now, what Victoria has gone through, South Australia, and God forbid what could still happen in other states and territories. This is why I'm so keen to ensure the vaccination program around the whole country remains on track. We are hitting those marks. We have worked so hard to get to those marks, and we cannot disrupt it. We need to deal with the challenges that we have and are. Providing additional doses, support where we can and are. Giving the economic support for people to push through. But in the same way, our Olympians have been pushing through and achieving such amazing and courageous results. I know every Australian has that Olympian spirit in them, and I have great confidence that that is why we will beat this Australia. Thank you.